Hello and welcome to the Direct Approach podcast with Wayne Moorehead. Thank you for joining us today for an exciting episode featuring a very special guest, his older brother, Russ Moorehead, the Chief Marketing Officer of Nu Skin. Russ brings a wealth of experience to the table, starting his career in direct selling shortly after college, then 16 years as the Senior VP of Digital Strategy for Estée Lauder, and now as the CMO of Nu Skin, where he leads the company's global brand efforts. Nu Skin is a 39-year-old publicly traded company operating in 50 countries and recently ranked 9th on the 2023 DSN Global 100 list with $2.23 billion in annual revenue for 2022. Known most for their ageLOC beauty devices and the successes of AP24 Whitening toothpaste through social selling a few years ago, Nu Skin has made a significant impact in the industry in more ways than one. Russ shares insights on the evolution of direct selling, the importance of taking risks, cultivating a purpose-driven workplace culture, and leveraging technology to empower people to be successful. Additionally, Russ and Wayne discuss the challenges and opportunities of remote work. They address the misconception of a one-size-fits-all solution and highlight specific roles that may not be suitable for remote environments. Don't miss out on this captivating episode. But before we begin, a word from one of our sponsors. Did you know that the average cost of one bad hire is nearly $15,000? By bringing 25 years of executive-level experience in direct sales companies and speaking 5 languages, the CP & Krell Group knows what it looks like to have success in a diverse and international environment. Specializing in the beauty, wellness, and fashion industries, their omni-channel approach allows them to have access to a pool of candidates with experience in various channels beyond direct sales. The CP & Krell team leverage invaluable insight into what it takes to recruit top talent. And by promoting diversity, 92% of their candidates hired in the last 18 months had an ethnically diverse background, with 85% of them speaking at least 2 languages. Because landing a more sophisticated brand of talent takes a sophisticated recruiting partner. The CP & Krell Group is your ideal partner to attract the industry's most substantial talent. Visit cpkrell.com. That is CPKRELL.com to learn more. The talent of tomorrow discovered today. Please help me welcome your host, Wayne Moorehead, and today's guest, Russ Moorehead, Chief Marketing Officer at Nu Skin.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Moorehead. And today I am joined by an individual that has had a really inspiring career. He spent 16 years at Estée Lauder Companies, where he was SVP of Digital Strategy and Innovation, expanding the company's digital marketing capabilities across a huge portfolio of more than 40 of the most recognizable beauty brands that we're all familiar with, including Clinique, MAC, Origins, Bobbi Brown, La Mer, Joe Malone, and Aveda, just to name a few. He's currently the CMO at Nu Skin, where he's responsible for global brand marketing and guiding Nu Skin as the world's leading integrated beauty and wellness company. And, at least to me, his most impressive title is that of brother. My brother, Russ Moorehead, welcome to Direct Approach.
Oh, it's great to be here. This is going to be fun. I've been listening to this for a while, and I'm thrilled with how you're doing a great job with this. It's fun.
Fun and a little weird, maybe. For those watching, don't attempt to adjust your screens. There are some similar physical characteristics. And for those of you listening, you may have a hard time distinguishing between each of our voices. Everybody always does. But again, thanks, Russ. I've really been looking forward to this. I know you're busy, but appreciate you taking out the time for Direct Approach here.
No, of course, this is going to be great.
So you started your career, really interesting. You started your career at Nu Skin and were there for about 8 years, where you then moved to New York City to work for Estée Lauder. So I'm curious what it was like going from a direct selling company into more of that traditional CPG retail world.
Oh, yeah. Nu Skin was my second job ever, kind of after college. So it's kind of where I started. And it's kind of funny as I think about your question, the thing that kind of comes to mind is just multiple situations of the right place at the right time. So in the early 90s, when I was starting at Nu Skin, many of you who have been in the industry for a very long time will remember, people ordered their product, their inventory through catalogs or faxing in or calling a 1-800 number. And, one of the first things that I was able to do is work on and be on the team that was building out this new thing called e-commerce. And I think one of the things that people, as we look back in history, two of the industries that were some of the earliest to jump into e-commerce were catalog companies. So like LL Bean, Land's End, even like a
Harry and David.
Yeah. And the reason for it was they didn't have any channel conflict. And it was really kind of just tweaking what they already do. And it was kind of like that for direct selling as well. It was like, how do we automate kind of this distributor's ability to order their products? So as we started to shift, you're really shifting an entire business to e-commerce. So the size of our business was enormous because really just by the kind of the feature and form set of what we were doing. So when I finished my MBA and moved to New York, I wasn't very focused on kind of the traditional aspects of CPG. So I was really focused on e-commerce through D2C, where most of these companies had been around in many cases much longer than Nu Skin, but had deep relationships with retailers like Macy's, Nordstrom, et cetera, and going direct to consumer and kind of building out that muscle and that channel for all these different brands was really quite new. So it was pretty exciting.
It's really interesting. You definitely were in direct selling at that interesting time and made the leap into Estée Lauder. I know a little bit about just from our conversations where that became their big push. A lot of beauty brands kind of tried to keep initially the e-commerce business a little bit of a distance for fear of maybe depositioning the brand. But ultimately, that e-commerce side's been really a windfall for these beauty brands and hasn't negatively impacted the brand or those brands over the long haul. So I'm curious, after 16, 17 years in the Fortune 500 world, what brought you back into direct selling?
Well, it's funny. I don't really think about it as going back into direct selling. After really where I was focused more was retail technology and working in kind of venture capital and startups in that area. And I got a phone call from Ryan Napierski, who was becoming the CEO of Nu Skin. And we had kept in touch for many, many years. I was always particularly interested with what he was seeing kind of on the ground in Japan and Korea and his time spent in Asia, since our businesses at Estée Lauder were really growing in Asia. And I think he would always reach out and talk to me about technology. And we maintained this business relationship, business friendship over the years. And he reached out and we ended up having lunch one day. And it was one of those things that when I saw the vision of where he was wanting to take things, and then had the opportunity to meet the team that he was assembling, I remember even reaching out to you at the time and talking to you about it. But it was really a no-brainer to see, what they were doing. He's a fantastic leader, an inspirational guy. But I think one of the things that he really does better than anyone else is he can build a good team and make sure that they're running in the right direction. So I think a lot of the things that you're going to be continuing to see come out of his vision are going to be pretty remarkable.
I can totally understand the rationale and the reasoning for that. He's an incredible operator. He's been an incredible champion for the channel as a whole. So an incredible person to work for and with. So you mentioned a couple of the other areas that you've had experience in, advising different startups, venture capital, in addition to CPG and direct selling. As you look back on your career, do you see any kind of commonalities or threads that kind of weave through each of these different areas?
So I think the first thing I'd say is, on the surface, I think we all make the mistake of thinking that all these industries are so different. And really, so many of the lessons or things we learn apply right across any and all of them. But if I think about it the way you asked that question, I think early on, one of the things that was kind of really instilled in us at Nu Skin was, and again, this was, back in the 90s, was this idea of duplication and a duplication process and making it simple and making it, I don't even know if it's a word, but duplicatable and making it repeatable and things like that. And I think it's one of the things that, as I went to go work for other companies, that really stuck with me. And it's, whether you're building an international team, whether you are trying to balance what comes, what role is global, what role is local in a company, or even if you're a startup on a road show, an investor roadshow, it's, how do you have a great story? How do you keep it simple? And how do you have everyone telling that same story over and over again? And I think the best teams do this really well.
Yeah, that's a big part of brand building, having that consistency across touch points, the messages, across audiences and markets. And that's something I want to circle back into in a minute here. But one kind of exciting thing for Nu Skin is it's about to celebrate its 40th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
I think I was there at the 20th anniversary. I'm dating myself here, but I think I remember the company celebrating 20 years. It's 20th anniversary. I spent a few years there as well. This is an incredible milestone, which very, very few companies ever reach. So tell the team they're back at the home office, congratulations from all of us. But I'm curious, as you came into this role, how did you approach both kind of honoring the legacy while at the same time really thinking about how the company needs to continually transform and evolve to remain relevant? How do you balance those two seemingly kind of conflicting concepts or ideas?
That's a great question. In fact, it's funny. I think I was at Nu Skin during its 10-year anniversary. And then next June, so a year from now, is its 40th. So we are already deep in work on, 40th anniversary initiatives. I mean, anyone that has spent any time at Nu Skin knows this. It has a really deep, rich history. And, at its earliest points, that history is around great products that deliver results and kind of not focused on, being that flashy but just really focused on, you use these products that they work. And then I think, over the years, they acquired the Pharmanex brand and really made a strong play into nutrition. Probably within the last 10 years, longer than that even, have really built a strong leadership position around devices. So, winning some of the best devices in beauty. And as you look at this history and these milestones very quickly, as you look forward and you take this rich history in beauty and in wellness, you quickly have an inside and out approach that's pretty singular in the industry. Inside and outside direct selling. There aren't a lot of companies in beauty that are also focused on wellness. There aren't a lot of companies that are at Macy's that are focused on wellness, or they're, at your local nutrition store, companies focused on beauty. And when you kind of layer on that, the device leadership that Nu Skin's built, and add on the layer of kind of IoT and smart devices, I think where Nu Skin's headed is pretty exciting. And really, what that is around personalization and, inside and out wellness and personalization. And I think what that does is it takes their history, but there's a really new and exciting story to tell right now. And, and for the years, the pipeline is exciting.
So it sounds like it's about taking some of these brand pillars, these brand anchors, and finding new ways to extend them and kind of innovate on them, but still have them as this kind of foundation or platform that you build on, but find new ways to extend into new opportunities and new audiences.
Yeah, and in many ways, they're right there. They're right there and have been there. And it's just like, how do you connect the dots better, and how do you tell the story more clearly and get people to focus in the right direction? And I don't want to say it's not hard. It's really hard, but it's it's all kind of there when you stop and look at it. The pieces were already there, and
Sure.
It allowed them, and I think allowed Ryan to create a vision of moving forward that is really actually new and fresh.
That's interesting. So kind of the old adage of simple but not easy.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good way of putting it.
So as you look back across the really rich history, as you mentioned, of Nu Skin, coming in with fresh eyes over the last year or two, what do you feel are some of those kind of key elements that have been most critical to its long-term success?
I think then as now, it's a company, Nu Skin's a company that treats people well. Their employees, their vendors, certainly their distributors. From day one, you learn how important that is and how critical that is to the value of the company. And kind of with that, the aspect of giving back through Force for Good and some of the kind of community and philanthropic needs, they really are things that at the employee level, people are focused on and proud of, and gives purpose. From my experience, they really treat their sales leaders and partner with them in a way that is industry leading and best in class, and kind of have set expectations for the broader industry on how a company partners and treats their sales force. I think one thing that they've really done well and continue to do, so it's part of the current culture, is Nu Skin's always had the approach of taking risks. And I can certainly speak for myself of giving people opportunities, back in the day when I started, that were a real stretch and probably beyond our abilities, but they gave you those chances, and they continue to let people grab onto something and really grow into roles and own it. And I think that really builds loyalty, but I think it's just part of the way they treat people. So I think that comes back to, so I think those are all some of the things that from a history that they have had and will continue to be part of where Nu Skin's going.
Yeah, I think that's really echoes my experience there as well. Definitely some of their superpowers for sure, and have contributed to their long-term success. So speaking of Nu Skin also, there's a really interesting dynamic that I know I've noticed and other people in the channel have noticed, but many of today's corporate leaders did let's call it a tour of duty at Nu Skin at some point in their careers. It's an amazing kind of development house for talent. Why do you think so many of today's corporate leaders have come through the Nu Skin doors at some point in their career?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, Nu Skin's one of the OGs, in this area, and specifically geographically in Utah, where there's such a strong presence of, brands in these companies. But really, a lot of people came up through those ranks, and I think it kind of comes back a little bit to what I was just saying. So at its foundation, from day one, like, you're not going to last 5 minutes at Nu Skin if you're not part of that really strong foundation of integrity. But I really do think that they instill an entrepreneurial spirit. And again, I could rattle off dozens of names of people that they gave, so many of us opportunities that were beyond our abilities, sent us off traveling around the world to build stuff. And I think when you do that, it becomes pretty contagious pretty fast. So I think that, I think part of it was, they weren't in a geographic area where, there was at the time hundreds of places people could work. But, people went off and just with that entrepreneurial spirit started things and, would use the playbook they learned at Nu Skin to really go from 0 to 60, starting off something else. So I think I've seen it again and again. And, there's a bunch of amazing companies out there. So, I look at what other companies have done, and they're, those people are doing great things too. So I think it kind of comes down to, what you want to be working on, what type of product you want. Because a lot of these companies have kind of used the Nu Skin playbook to come up with a completely different product line or something that's not particularly competitive. And, I think it's exciting to see how many successful leaders have come out of are people that you and I know from, the whole industry. We all know each other from working with similar vendors or from early days at Nu Skin.
Okay, so one of the things that you and I have had many conversations about over the last few years is work from home, pros, cons. It's something that we've all struggled with, that companies are continuing to struggle with. But as we see, more and more companies are now inviting their employees back to at least 2 or 3 days a week, if not full time again. I'm curious how Nu Skin is approaching this, and I'm curious where you personally see kind of those benefits and the challenges, especially as it relates to building a culture of kind of working remotely versus being in the office, and where you see that line.
Yeah, it's interesting, and there's the amount of conversations and wanting to make sure that this is done correctly, testing and learning on it, I think has been a fascinating thing to watch how different companies overreact or underreact to different things. I can tell you what I think the answer is. There's some amazing things in both. And I think neither of them alone are the right answer. So I can speak for Ryan and Nu Skin's leadership team. What ended up happening during the pandemic is he was able to hire some executive management that live in different parts of the country that I think he might not have been able to get otherwise. We have key senior leaders that are, literally around the country. I'm an example of that. I live in New York City, and, I fly out every month and spend time in Utah with the team. But it's enabled me to be a part of Nu Skin's journey that's been great for me. I'll say this. I think the question that people initially were asking was the question around productivity. Is Jane Doe or John Doe more productive working at home or more productive working at the office? And I think it's the wrong question, because I think it depends on the person. I promise you, any one of us can have an example of so-and-so that's significantly more productive working at home. And the person that sits next to them might be significantly more productive working at the office. I think what the question really comes down to how this impacts younger members of your team that are newer in their careers. So I believe mentoring happens in person, and often by accident, kind of being at the right place in the right time. I can think of so many times in my career where, someone for whatever reason took me under their wing and gave me opportunities that just wouldn't have happened if I wasn't there on the scene helping with something else, or, carrying boxes for them to the conference room. And I just happened to be there. So, I look at the people that are new and are fresh in their career, and I would say to them, be in the office as much as you can and around different levels of management as much as you can. I would also say to companies, if you can get a talented person remote, a talented leader remote, grab them. But I wouldn't be spending a lot of time filling junior roles remotely. I think those are best served locally, and you're going to grow your talent better with them in the office, 3 days a week or so.
It's something we're all still wrestling with and figuring out what the best recipe is. But I do think kind of some type of mix of both. But for me, again, also, I know I've been out of the workplace, more kind of remote for the last few years. And to your point, especially in kind of the marketing and creative advertising area, if you are willing to go and hire someone remotely, you definitely have access to new and different talent pools that you might not otherwise have. And so I think you're right there. I don't think there's any one answer, but there are really important dynamics that can only be achieved when you're together and when you're there in the office. So I want to talk a little bit about technology. Obviously, it's been a big part of your career. Nu Skin throughout time and continues to invest a lot in technology that you can share. What are some of the areas of focus for Nu Skin from a technology standpoint, and where maybe a lot of those dollars and human resources are going?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we always used to say at Estée Lauder is it's about the teams, not the machines, and really thinking about how technology is enabling something else, and where possible, as invisible as possible. So, I think anywhere where you're not calling as much attention to the feature, the technology itself, but that actual solution or benefit to someone or convenience, all the better. Yeah, Nu Skin certainly is making big investments in this area. I don't think I could get into too many specifics on that, but I could say
Sure.
that easily you could describe where we're trying to take things as around personalization, and I think of that more as for the consumer, for the customer, the best personalized experience for what they need. And then I think from a sales leader and an affiliate standpoint, reach and scale. So how can we leverage technology to allow a sales leader or an affiliate to reach farther than they can on their own, and to fish farther out and deeper, than they can by leveraging this technology. And, at no point ever is the goal to replace them. It's to extend, expand, and enhance what they're doing in a way that, well, it really, like I say, just takes things to a different scale, where, I think that one of the things for our industry in general is a person can only talk to so many people and take care of so many people. And what we end up with is an industry that is really good at acquisition. And as an industry, we're not great at retention. And I think part of that is because the limitations of a face-to-face, one-on-one, human being to human being approach, where if we can use technology to allow a sales leader or an affiliate to focus on acquiring customers, and we can leverage technology to plug the bathtub so that we're not losing customers or distributors, out the bottom of the tub as fast as we're filling it, growth can become exponential pretty quickly. I just think historically the industry has had an approach of that's how it is.
Now, a word from our sponsor. DSN is honored to be supported by industry suppliers that partner with companies across the channel to help enhance, streamline, and grow your businesses. This episode is sponsored by InfoTrax. For 30 years, InfoTrax has developed exceptional software solutions. Their cloud-based platform offers everything customers need for a successful compensation plan. Their commission calculator, web-based development portal, data subscriptions, commission management, health monitoring displays, and support team are here for you. You may have heard recently that InfoTrax partnered with BigCommerce, a flexible software-as-a-service platform to help you grow and convert more customers. BigCommerce equips you with fast-scaling e-commerce success with e-commerce tools and customizable storefronts that fit your brand. And the user-friendly interface empowers you to make changes with clicks, not code, to improve productivity and reduce costs. Visit infotraxsys.com. That's infotraxsys.com to learn more. Now let's get back to the interview with Russ Moorehead, CMO of Nu Skin.
I love what you said around kind of enhancing and improving their reach and the ability for corporate to help manage that customer relationship over the long term so that the affiliates, the distributors can be focused on bringing in new while we kind of help manage, the lifetime value and longevity of those relationships that they bring in. I think that's really smart. As CMO of a large global brand, part of your responsibility is really building and managing and growing that brand. And a lot of brand building, as we talked about earlier, has to do with consistency. It's these anchors, it's these pillars that we want to make sure get communicated across all touch points. I'm curious at Nu Skin, which is in, I think, 54 global markets, how you approach kind of the fixed and the flexible. Like what are the ways that you're able to kind of build in that consistency while at the same time giving these markets the ability to kind of localize and maybe kind of stretch the brand a little bit?
Yeah. And I think that, again, it comes down to where can you leverage scale? So where, to build a strong brand, what of that should be fixed? And, that role of the market on, localization and how they kind of tell that in a local way, it's a tricky one. And I think the thing that's tough, and this isn't unique to our industry, but any company that's dealing with an international organization, most companies, certainly that I've worked at, they're going to have a team that's over, EMEA, Europe, a team that's over APAC, a team that's over Latin America. And what you quickly, as soon as you take 5 seconds to think about it, you realize that, and obviously I'm exaggerating to make a point, but Europe is kind of one currency in many languages. Latin America's kind of 1 + 1, one language plus Brazil, and lots of different currencies. And then you have Asia that's, the similarities between the different markets in Asia are not that many. It's, different languages, different currencies, different approaches, different privacy laws. So I guess my point is what you start to realize is every region kind of has their own challenge to deal with and possibly some point that they can leverage. Latin America can leverage where possible, language similarities. It becomes more complicated than you think. So as soon as you start saying like, hey, let each market do what they want, you start to realize in many cases that where things can be globalized or centralized, there's a lot of strength to that. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that adds to that is in today's world, meaning anyone can be showing anything that's online anywhere. And, if one market does something that's way off brand, another market can see it really quickly, or a corporate can see it quickly. So, I think that there's aspects of availability of seeing that information in a speedy way. But I think really the trick is if you have a clear vision and a strong brand, what I've seen is what the markets really want to do and should be doing is focusing on their customer. They are what's closest to the customer. So let them focus on that piece of it. We'll call it that last mile, but anywhere possible where they're not spending time, energy, resources recreating the wheel 49 times, you can save a lot of money and create a really duplicatable story pretty easily. If once markets have that trust in what you're doing. And I kind of think the way that we've approached that with Nu Skin is, co-creation with the markets, with the regions. And, it's not something that just gets delivered to them that they don't know anything about, they haven't seen before. If they're at the loop at the beginning, they give us a much wider berth at Global on being excited about what we create. If you surprise them, they don't like surprises the same way we don't like surprises. So, trust each other and work together as a team. And it becomes a lot simpler, a lot quicker.
I love that idea of co-creation. I think as far upstream as we can do that, the better result with the market. And I think my tune's changed a little bit over the years where, early in my career as CMO was trying to keep everything as fixed as possible across as many markets. And then over time realize, it's our job really I do believe in keeping the brand centralized, and by brand, I mean who we are, what we do, how we're different, and then let the markets kind of express that almost at the campaign level, let them kind of express it a little bit differently, a little more localized, but at least who we are and this is what we do and how we're different kind of stays consistent across the globe.
It's one of those things that's kind of industry specific. So, if you're a company that sells running shoes, like you don't need different formulations or regulations or things in other markets where, the business that we're in, there's certain things you can say in certain markets that you can't say in other markets. There's certain products there that need to be positioned differently in other markets. So, you can't just think like, oh, let's be like Nike and do everything at corporate and you're stuck with it. But I again think having a strong brand is not just in regards to the question you're asking, but more than ever, having a strong brand is important.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I want to dig in a little bit on kind of some of the changes that you've noticed in direct selling. Again, you have that really interesting perspective of having the context earlier, kind of having this long period of palate cleansing, and then coming back into the industry a little bit with fresh eyes, but with, amazing perspective and context that most people don't have. So I'm curious just to kind of run a few questions by you on some of these changes that you're seeing. But as you look at the channel today versus, when you were, let's call it 20 years ago, what do you feel the channel is doing right now? And what are some of the things that we need to be doing better?
Well, the first when I think about the channel itself is it's always strange to me if you talk to someone in this industry and ask them what their company is, if they describe it by the channel. Oh, we're a direct selling company. Oh, we're a network marketing company. I just don't know other industries that do that. So I think the first thing that I would say is for your customers, for your distributors, for your employees, describe your company as what you do. and then your channel, direct selling, affiliate marketing, that's how you do it. So I would think in terms of, you are a weight loss company, or you are a, whatever industry. I think that it really helps with positioning. And I think it gives the employees some clarity. It gives your creative teams some license to really know what they're trying to do. And I think that I'll jump to that. And it goes back to what we were just saying, branding matters more than ever. You go back 10 years and, at certain companies in the direct selling industry, they would, whether they say it out loud, they might think like, oh, our packaging doesn't really matter. Our photography doesn't matter as much. Our products aren't sitting on the shelf next to the competition. And now more than ever, they are. A woman scrolling through her Instagram feed and like she's seeing Nu Skin products next to Clinique products, next to, name any company. And also it's in her handbag or in her medicine cabinet next to these products. So it matters. It matters. People want to feel like they're treating themselves to something. So it matters that you stand out. And because of that, the competition certainly isn't just other direct selling companies. It's anyone in that space. So as you kind of make this commitment to be world-class, your branding needs to be commensurate with other companies in that product category, not just within direct selling. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy, or at least realization that we are sitting on shelf, or at least in feed, next to all these competitive and replacement products. I think that's a really important lesson for all of us in direct selling to learn. So talk a little bit about direct selling's place as you see it in this kind of increasingly omni-channel world, where the consumer doesn't think in terms of channel. They only think in terms of availability and speed, probably. But can you talk a little bit about where you see our place?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there are things that this channel just does better than any other category. And those things are more relevant now than ever. So, there's this whole blossoming of influencer marketing. And, Nu Skin and other direct selling companies have been doing that for 10, 20, 40 years, and now can do it at scale. I think what's interesting is for traditional companies, trust me, and you know this as well as anyone, Wayne, they are starting to do this. But we definitely have a head start on that aspect, and it's not easy to do. So where I see the huge opportunity for the industry is take this superpower of influencer affiliate marketing that we all know how to do so well, and marry it up with the best aspects that come out of these D2C companies, which is having customer data, which is, understanding the customer better, which is understanding those CRM tools, retention tools. And that's all stuff you can buy out of the box. And it's all stuff that's not that hard to hire to. What's really hard to do is build out a network of hundreds of thousands of influencers. So I think the industry has like I said at the very beginning, right place, right time, is in the right place at the right time. I will also say, I don't think most companies in the industry will actually do it. And then therefore, I think 2, 5, 10 years from now, there'll be a lot of companies in this industry that just aren't here anymore.
I just want to clarify, when you say that don't know how to do it, are you talking about kind of e-commerce, kind of customer acquisition? I just want to make sure from a clarity
Correct. Yeah.
standpoint,
Yeah. That just stick with
bringing in the D2C
our
practices.
job. Yeah. I think that direct selling companies that just say our job is to give stuff to the distributors and let them do all of the acquisition, all of the retention, all of that won't be around. And I think the ones that are like, how do we partner with our distributors to accelerate acquisition and programmatically address retention, I think are going to be bigger than they ever were.
Absolutely. And I may add to that, and I think it was kind of inherent in what you were saying, but not only are we great at influencer affiliate marketing, but community building, like over a long term, kind of creating these tribes of people that help kind of retain these people as well. That's something that we've done so well for so long, and we definitely don't want to lose, for sure.
Yeah, it's not something traditional retailers know how to do.
Yeah.
And it's not something brands, because for the most part, they've relied on traditional retailers to sell their products. So they're both at this learning phase, yet they've done the heavy lifting for a lot of that programmatic direct to consumer that direct selling companies can plug and play. But I do think companies have to act fast, because those companies have big pockets. They will invest and they will figure it out.
Are there any other things that you think that direct selling companies need to be doing today to ensure that they're well positioned to remain relevant in the future?
I think that the industry has spent decades getting really good at telling the story on why be a distributor for this company, for company X, for company Y. And I don't think most direct selling companies have put much energy behind why this is a good way to shop. And I think if you don't have a compelling story on why this is a great way for a consumer to buy products, you're kind of missing it, because people ride in an Uber because it's a great experience, not because it's a great business opportunity for the driver. So I think if we in the industry realize we have to have a compelling proposition to be, why is this a better way to shop than going to GNC or Sephora or Ulta or Macy's? And if you don't have that, you better figure it out fast, because your compelling story can't be because Debbie the distributor, it's a good way for Debbie the distributor to make money. And I think that's a gap that the companies that are playing to win right now are figuring out.
I think you're right. There has to be a value proposition beyond the product itself. To getting back to the how you buy, there needs to be a value proposition around that. And again, it's probably trust, it's additional information, it's that additional handhold. But yeah, I think we've kind of gotten away from telling that part of the story over the years somehow. And it's definitely something that we need to be emphasizing to remain relevant. I think that's a really interesting insight. So I want to ask some questions around kind of leadership, just to get a sense for your leadership style a little bit. But over your career, can you think of and share one of the main leadership lessons that you feel you've learned that have really impacted how you lead and manage people?
I think it's interesting because I think it shifts in your career. So I would say my advice to anyone early on would be, say yes to everything and anything. Be on time. And I remember, as I was starting out at different companies where I'm like, I obviously know less than anyone in this room and in this table because I'm brand new to my career. And just thinking to myself, okay, so my goal is going to be better to work with than everyone else. Be more helpful, have the best attitude, and just kind of be the person that, oh, we want to have so-and-so on our team on this project. And I think that the point with those things that I said, be on time, say yes, don't be difficult to work with. Those are all things that are 100% in your control on day one. Like day one out of school, you can do that. And then I know one of the things that I used to always love to do is, at like quarterly new employee orientations, whether they were, fairly junior people or executives, would all have them in these orientations together. And I think one of the things that I would tell people is, and you're looking out in the room and there's an accountant and there's an analyst and there's a supply chain person and a marketing person and a graphic designer. And just to communicate to the room. And, when you've been at a company as long as I had, you saw the trajectory of people's careers. And I would tell them that the people that grow into leadership positions in this company are people that know how to connect the dots, and they understand, like if you're an accountant, like understand how those things impact marketing or creative. Like the goal isn't let's have the least expensive photo shoot as possible, or let's hire the cheapest whatever. And just understanding how decisions, if you can start to piece together how the ecosystem of an organization works, like you become infinitely more valuable. And to be honest, you like and enjoy your job better because like you understand how things work. So I think learn how to connect the dots. And then the other thing I would say to anyone starting out to senior leaders, especially today, become a really good storyteller. And for some people, I know for you, Wayne, that comes really naturally. For some people, it doesn't come naturally. And if it doesn't, hire people to help you with that, and don't just outsource it. Hire them to help you become a better storyteller, because I feel like that's actually what we're doing all day long. And that piece of it, I guess, is my biggest advice, is become a great storyteller.
I love that. Yeah, that's unexpected. That's not something we often talk about in the boardrooms or hallways of our companies, but it is a really important skill set, and something that especially our distributors, we encourage them to become these amazing storytellers about the products, about the benefits, and about the community. And so I think that's really interesting and wise advice. I appreciate that. So you've been fortunate to work with some really amazing people over your career. I've been able to know and meet a few of them. I'm curious who stands out in your mind as someone that's had a really big impact on your career, and what did you learn from them?
I think the first one I'll name, which is kind of would be an unexpected answer, but you certainly know this person. I would say one of the biggest is my wife. And you've worked with her, your companies with her company on a number of projects, but she is certainly the hardest working person I've ever met in my life. And, her integrity is completely 100%. We make it a point never to work on projects together, but I will say when I finished grad school and was moving to New York, as you know, she was a senior, executive at a big company. And I think as we started to get to know each other, I think I realized I better get my butt in gear and bring my A game if this person's ever going to pay any attention to me. So I think she actually had a really big impact on my career. And it is someone that on a daily basis, we work in similar industries in strategy and branding and can talk about that. I think another one you've met is my boss and mentor at Estée Lauder was just one of the, also one of the smartest people I ever met. And I think he was the person for me that you realized he is wildly successful and effective because he completely understands how the entire company works. He understood how the retailers like Macy and Nordstrom and, Boots in the UK and Isetan in Japan and Sephora in, France, and all these companies, how the industry worked for them, but how the company worked. Just knowing how everything works together. I think another one really, an interesting one is, I would say, is Ryan Dapierski, the CEO of Nu Skin. And the thing that I've really learned from Ryan, and it's one of those things where I thought I was good at this until I met Ryan and then realized, that I've got a long way to go, is the guy reads more than anyone I know and is sharing books and things with all of his leadership all the time. But I really haven't met a leader that's as engaged as he is and taking notes. And I don't know too many CEOs that are taking notes in every meeting and sending follow-up notes. I feel like going, I thought my job was to take notes and follow up with him on it. And it's just impressive. It's one of those people, like, I don't know where the energy and the enthusiasm comes from, but it is contagious. And then I would say another one, obviously, Wayne, is just as far as people in careers. I've just been blown away with, I think one of the fascinating things about your career is the fact that I don't know too many people that like move in and out of different industries with an expertise. But, when it comes to branding and kind of brand strategy, I know you're the first person that a lot of people in the industry call, and certainly someone that I reach out to fast. So I think I would sum up by saying there's a lot of people that do, but certainly a small handful that have really completely changed the way I approach my career, and I attribute a lot of success to those people.
That's awesome. I love that. I think that's really meaningful. I'm even just kind of thinking through some of what you said. One side tip is I wrote marriage tip: don't work on projects together. So that might be the biggest takeaway from the podcast.
Well, the answer is I don't know. We haven't.
Okay, but it's a rule you had in place.
It's a rule we had in place before. So my comment isn't that it doesn't work. It's that it's actually great to have a partner that understands the world you live in, and you can talk about those things. It's been a real great thing in my marriage, and kind of a secret weapon in business.
I bet she is amazing. This made me think a little bit too. Again, I know, just for the audience, this is a little bit of a different podcast, just two siblings kind of chatting. But as you were talking about some of the people that really had a big impact on you, one that we share, Scott Schwartz, who worked there at Nu Skin. He's the person that I really kind of credit with teaching me the business of direct selling and really understanding the distributor perspective. He passed away about 5 years ago, but an amazing mentor, I think, to both of us, over the years.
Yeah,
and for me,
to a lot of people.
To a lot of people, to a lot of us that I think are now at a lot of other companies. But yeah, an amazing mentor. I learned so much from him, again, coming from Nu Skin there. I'll just mention a couple. Dallin Larson, who I worked with for several years. And, over the last 15, 20 years, Stuart is kind of like Cher or Madonna, you just say the first name. He doesn't need a last name. And really everybody knows who we're all talking about, but he's had an incredible impact on me personally, professionally. And I love kind of thinking back and taking the time to realize and remember, the people that have a huge impact, and then try to do the same. Don't just kind of selfishly take the advice and all the learnings, but really try to pass it on. I think that has a huge impact on people. So you talked.
I'll say one thing about that. I think it's one of the things you mentioned, Stuart, and I'll say one of the things about Stuart that I think's, I don't know too many people that are bigger connectors than Stuart, and just connecting people, and like he's one of those people, like if you text him, he's going to text you back and with 5 different ways to be helpful to you. And it is one of those things where, I think people like that in any industry, it can be rare. And I think it's an example of, the people that I admire, the people that are willing to help and mentor, like some of the people you mentioned.
So last question, and then I'll let you off the hook. So as kind of a senior exec at a global public company, again, 50 markets, how in your life do you maintain some semblance of balance and prevent any type of burnout, which is something I know that we all kind of feel and struggle with at times?
I think the first thing is have a strong team and trust them. At the scale Nu Skin is, you really can't micromanage. So don't frustrate yourself trying. But I'm very lucky to have the VPs on my team that I have. I'm constantly impressed and blown away with how hard they work. And, so much of my time is in meetings. And it's just, to have people on your team that have the ability to be able to take strategy and help execute on it it doesn't get better than having that. So, I mean, the short answer is my leadership team they're real pros, and I appreciate that. I would say the other thing goes with it, like delegate, and like you certainly can't do it all yourself. So I think for me, I focus on try to do less better, fewer things better. And as a leader in an organization, how do you keep whittling out stuff that is not going to move the needle, and keep people focused on things that not only will move the needle, but back to what we said earlier, but then you can duplicate and replicate and scale them. So I think if you take that approach, I mean, it is what it is. We're in this many markets. There's going to be problems. There's going to be politics. There's going to be natural disasters. And it's just like, have a team that you trust to like know where they're going and let them do it.
I think that's a perfect place to end. Russ, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for all the insights that you shared. It's so fun having you back in the channel.
Oh, this was great.
Thank you again. And tell everybody there back at Nu Skin we said hello.
I will. Perfect. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a minute to give a rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid and insightful conversations like this one. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.